Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormick. During today's show, we will discuss best practices with IT modernization programs and strategies in the federal government. With me on today's show are George Duchek, Chief Information Officer, Defense Logistics Agency, Robert Leahy, Chief Information Officer at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, Jim Watts, PMIS Program Manager, Performance Management Group at TSA, Lamont Copeland, Director of Federal Solutions Architect, Verizon, Stephen Moon, Data Platform Architect, Office of the Field CTO, Snowflake, and Katie Tierney, AVP Digital Services and Operations Management of the Americas at BMC Software. Well, this is a very timely subject. We've got a TMF out there with $1 billion. We've got an executive order that's requiring us and asking us and encouraging us to modernize and harden our environments. Got a lot of zero trust activities going on out there. And I think all of us realize that when we modernize, we address the security issues, and we also deliver that promise to our end environment, whether that be the citizen, the astronaut in this case, the warfighter, et cetera, the traveling public. George, let me start with you. Give us a state of how IT modernization is going. Maybe a little bit on how big is Defense Logistics Agency? I can't imagine the massive footprint that it must be global, right?
It is a global organization. We're in about 23 countries, 46 states, roughly 27,000 employees, and our annual revenue is about $43 billion a year. And we are a working capital fund. So we, unlike other DoD organizations where they work on appropriations, we have to operate much like a regular business does. We have to buy products at scale and then pass those savings on to our customers, largely the services and other government agencies, and then put a small operating load on each one, on everything we sell just to cover our operating costs. So yes, a global organization.
Very much a global organization. I would say, 23,000, that's pretty lean and mean for a global organization that's serving essentially millions of folks out there, and it's certainly a very sizable budget. Robert, how about at NASA? Maybe you can tell us, first of all, what is Goddard Space Flight Center versus Kennedy Space Flight Center or Langley or, Wallops Island, et cetera, and then tell us, how are we modernizing space and everything on the ground associated to space?
Hey, Luke, good morning, everybody. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center is one of 10 centers around the country that support various NASA missions. Goddard focuses on sciences, planetary science, heliophysics, earth sciences, et cetera, and has one of the largest, if not the largest, concentration of scientists in the world. We service about 10,000 customers, very much focused on science. And of course, to conduct that science, we use satellites. So we have over 80 missions, satellite missions around the Earth, out into deep space, et cetera, where we're collecting information and bringing information back to allow our scientists to do the work that they're doing. For us, modernization means using various cloud technologies, et cetera, to advance and move forward on our missions to give them a better operating platform. We have missions, for example, Hubble spacecraft, Hubble Space Telescope that's been in orbit for 30 years now. So we've got to continue to modernize those ground systems to support Hubble.
That's impressive. I didn't realize it was 30 years. And I know that you all are got other massive telescopes in the pipeline there. Jim, how about at TSA? The traveling public is ramped up and ready to go. I know there's a lot of activity going on over there. A lot of things that were discovered and tested, as I understand, during the COVID process. Tell us about what's happening as far as IT modernization.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. There's been a great deal of focus on migrating applications and systems from data center to the cloud. We've actually been able to use that as an opportunity to upgrade and really modernize things like Office 365 and the emails and iShare. We're working on that. We're also using this as an opportunity, using and applying the federal data strategy to see how we can leverage data across the agency and create those key data sets. So this is really helping us improve operations.
You mentioned data center two, just maybe an explanation as to what that is. Folks may not understand what data center two means.
Certainly, it is a physical location that is actually managed by the Navy. And for a number of years, TSA and other components of Homeland Security house their applications there. There was an effort over the last several years to move out of that system, so out of that location. So we're able to meet those deadlines. And then in the process, as I mentioned, we were able to, if we had to move somewhere, we're going to move, in this case, a number of things to the cloud.
Gives a great opportunity. Obviously, there was a data center one, a data. I think some other folks on previous shows have talked about that. And right, so you have sort of this ecosystem of a hybrid environment out there now, which is fantastic. Lamont, how about at Verizon? You all are seeing things from a very broad perspective, and it's sort of game on now as everyone starts to modernize. And you know, the Verizon ecosystem, such an important part of making that happen.
Yes, Luke, thanks. Yeah, it is a very important part of that, because what we want to do is make sure that we're partnering with every one of our fellow people in the federal industry to make sure that we're helping to bring that innovation, bring the change that's necessary to be able to bring in new technology, bring in these services, and also help keep it modern along the way. There's a lot of efforts that are going on with the government to try and modernize, and then, you know, stay and keep the pace and actually help advance and move where technology is supposed to be going and where they would like to see it go. And we want to make sure that we're helping part of that, whether it's bringing things from a network side, bringing in the cloud infrastructure, bringing in 5G, all those things to be able to say, how do I advance the mission forward for what you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's really interesting to you know, modernize your environment that you're in and coming out of, and also take advantage of this emerging technology, such as cloud, such as 5G, such as some of these hybrid techniques and toolkits and instrumentation that's available to make all these things happen. Speaking of technology toolkits and capabilities, Stephen, Snowflake, such a big part of modernization, right? At the end of the day, it's about the data, right? I always say the bad actors don't get into these environments to look around and see how cool it is. They get in there to get access to that data. And you all are doing some fantastic things in regards to processing, making that available so people can make informed decisions. Tell us what it looks like out there across the spectrum.
Yeah, so I think one of the first trends I'm starting to see is more and more realization that data operations, which is a lot of what I work with our customers with, is really an organizational capability. It's not an IT function, right? So it's, you know, IT is definitely a big component of it, but if you think about building a aviation platform in the Army, like a helicopter, for example, you know, it's the means is a warfighting capability, not IT. And so I think more and more organizations are realizing that data operations is an organizational capability. But then I would say the second thing is organizations are looking at, you had, you know, data warehousing and data lakes, and now you've got the term data mesh, people have probably heard of. But I think what they're realizing is having a single data platform that can cover, you know, all the different types of data and the volume, velocity, variety, and stuff coming in, having a single point of entry for that data, having a single security model for that data, all those things really not only enable the capabilities of your data operations platform, but also reduce the risk, right? You know, so complexity is the enemy of security. And so being able to do that, leveraging multiple clouds vendors, that's something that's really come about. We're seeing a lot from our customers is that, you know, they want that ability to not only leverage and run their data operations in multiple clouds, but also to be able to share data. And so there's some unique capabilities that Snowflake has that allows customers to share data in a secure way that really can take advantage of that across their organization.
Data in so many different places, a lot of data being collected, right? There's a lot of instrumentation out there. You think of IoT, et cetera, all this processing that's happening at the edge, and being able to pull that together into some meaningful way, and again, make those advanced quick decisions really important. Well, Katie, speaking of instrumentation, BMC very much involved in that, along with a lot of other things, super important as these environments get more modern, get more complex. You've got to have advanced ways to make sure you're managing all this. Tell us what's happening at BMC Software.
Yeah, so at BMC, we're seeing our customers particularly in the DoD space, moving sometimes begrudgingly towards modernization. We know that it's basically a government mandate now, but sometimes they're struggling with it. But when they are focusing on modernization today, they're looking really at 3 key areas. They're looking at automation, they're looking at a move to SaaS, and they're looking at consolidation. When you take a look at a lot of the organizations out there, particularly if you're thinking about enterprise service management, a lot of our DoD and civilian agency customers have service desks that are all over the place. And in order for them to modernize, they're realizing they've got to take control of that and bring that together. And the move to SaaS really fulfills that continual modernization, because when you have things on premises, it's a lot easier for you to say, we're just not going to upgrade. We're not going to take advantage of those new capabilities. When you go into SaaS and you're looking at FedRAMP or you're looking at IL4, IL5, IL6, you're going to be taking advantage of those capabilities, and it's actually going to accelerate the modernization that organizations are seeing. And we're seeing that with our customers who are in SaaS today. They really are able to adopt the innovation a lot more quickly, which makes them more modern from an information technology perspective. And lastly, I talked about automation. Being able to automate things like system access authorization requests and things that used to take 5 or 6 or 7 days, and now having them down to 5 minutes, has really helped drive modernization around our federal customers.
Right. It takes a lot of those sort of rote processes off the table, makes them very clean, modernized, automated, and accurate, which I think is super important so that they can focus on some of these higher order activities. Speaking of higher order, going to go back to you, Robert, at NASA. Every time I turn around, there's another rocket going off. And you've raised a good point and really illustrated some of the other things that NASA is doing, some of the very important things they're doing in regards to the environment, et cetera. Give us a specific program that you'd like to highlight in regards to some modernization activity that's going on. It's really helping NASA fulfill its mission.
So we started at Goddard about 18 months ago. We started a cloud program for our flight projects. As I mentioned earlier, we've got over 80 projects that have ground missions. And each one of these projects is, and I'll use the term, and it's kind of ironic with the discussion today, a snowflake, right? Each one has been built up individually, et cetera, and they are run by the flight projects. We're providing platforms now to give them a migration path to move to a GovCloud, both moderate FSMA, and we're looking to build out a FSMA high environment because we have several projects that require that. This will give the projects the ability to upgrade their cybersecurity capabilities, to use common controls and things like that. Actually, you mentioned TMF earlier. We've got a TMF proposal in right now that's past phase 1 and going into phase 2 to fund the build out of this infrastructure. So this is really providing that infrastructure layer to our projects and looking for commonalities and ways that we can provide baseline services that are consumable and highly secure and will support all of our projects. Consumable,
highly secure, affordable, and there when you need it, right? I mean, so that you can just put the building blocks on that, and these software development folks can just go and do the things that they need to do to sort of, again, to fulfill that promise. We talked about Snowflake. You mentioned it, Stephen. I'm going to jump down to you. Give us a specific program that you'd like to highlight where an agency, an entity, a sector is modernized using this type of capability that you'd like to bring to the listening audience here.
Sure. I mean, I'll talk in generally, probably data sharing is the biggest thing, not only within, specific CSPs, but across different cloud vendors, cloud service providers. And so that's been one of the biggest things, not only data sharing, but secure data sharing, being able to set up data exchanges where, I can give access to, from say like the science community, for example, right? I want to create data products for the science community, and I want to be able to share that with them, give them pretty much unlimited compute power to run their jobs, do their, activities against that, without actually having to moving the data, pretty much instantaneous access to it. So that's been a huge ask from customers that Snowflake's delivered on is being able to share data pretty much universally in a secure way. Coming from the background that I do, security is, of the utmost importance, right? Because you don't have security, you don't have anything else. And so that's one of the key things, that being able to, classify data and, provide different levels of security in different manners as part of that sharing context has been huge as well. So there's a lot of things in that we could talk about. Is making data fit for use and fit for purpose, if people remember once upon a time with IDLE, but really integrating all of that into a single platform and sharing that in an instantaneous way that allows what I call communities of interest or consumers of that data, whether they be data scientists or geneticists, instant access to that data with pretty much unlimited compute in a concurrent way, so that you can have large numbers, large teams, independent teams working without stepping over each other, so to speak.
Right, and super important to stitch all that together. A really basic tenet of this modernization activity. George, let's talk about DLA. You gave us an explanation of sort of the global footprint. Give us the state of the IT program, and maybe specifically highlight one of the activities that you're doing there that is addressing the needs of the warfighter.
Yeah, I think you may know that we're undergoing a fairly massive, a substantial upgrade to our IT infrastructure, really first major upgrade in about 30 years. So it's a huge lift for the agency. But one of the examples I'd like to give, and it may sound very trite or a small thing to your audience, is simply change the name though from IT modernization to digital-business transformation. You read a lot in the literature about digital transformation. I haven't seen a whole lot that couples digital-business, that couples the two together. And IT modernization to digital business transformation, that coupling is important. And it's more so than you think, because words matter. And IT modernization connotes an IT focus and an IT-led initiative. And modernization really isn't about IT. It's about using IT to solve current and emerging business problems. So this means that the business needs to rethink its current business model. It has to be a partner with IT. They have to look at their business model and say, does this still make sense? We have different tools. Can we improve performance? So simply changing the name to this digital-business transformation, we call it DBX in DLA. It couples the business perspective to the digital perspective, and the business now is a primary stakeholder and has a vested interest in the success of modernization, rather than being on the sidelines thinking that, oh, it's just an IT thing.
Right. I think it's really important, right, to let's start with the operator. Let's start with the warfighter. Let's understand what they need. And then perhaps it's a business process. Maybe it's taking out some process. And certainly it's going to be introducing some type of technology at some point in time. But it's not, hey, we're going to start with the technology and then go find the problem, so to speak.
Exactly.
Right, which I think is very important. There's a lot of activity in that area, and I think that's going really well. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.